Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive deep again. This time, we're all about unleashing your potential.
Unlocking it, yeah.
Yeah. We're cracking open John C. Maxwell's The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. Heard of it?
Oh, absolutely. A classic.
It's more than just another self-help book, though, right? This one goes deeper.
Way deeper. I mean, think about it. Picture hitting all your goals, like crushing it, but still feeling like, is this it?
Like something's missing.
Exactly. That was Maxwell's aha moment. That sparked a journey for him, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people listening, too.
It's going to be an awesome journey for our listeners. What's cool is that Maxwell isn't about quick fixes. He's giving you the core principles of growth.
Yeah, it's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. These principles, they apply everywhere. Work, relationships, you name it. If you're passionate about it, this book has something for you.
I love that he mixes personal stories with insights from, like, history's biggest hitters. We're talking Benjamin Franklin, Vince Lombardi.
Yeah, the greats. That's what makes this book so unique. It's practical advice, but also timeless wisdom.
Totally. And one of Maxwell's biggest realizations early on was that just chasing goals isn't enough.
Yeah, you can achieve a lot and still not really grow as a person.
He actually talks about investing in this personal growth kit cost him $799. Huge back then.
Big commitment.
Shows you how serious he was about this. It was a turning point, though, right?
Totally changed his perspective. He realized that focusing on growth itself, that was the key.
Growth leads to goals, not the other way around.
100%. And that story, it perfectly illustrates the law of intentionality.
Oh, tell me about this one.
Basically, growth doesn't just magically happen, right?
No, definitely not. You don't just wake up one day and you've grown.
You got to be intentional about it, make it a priority. You got to plan it out, set aside time, and really put in the effort.
So it's about actively seeking growth.
Yeah, being proactive. Think about your own life for a second. Where do you feel that gap?
That gap between where you are now and where you want to be.
Exactly. That's the growth gap.
That's a great question for everyone listening to consider. Now, Maxwell doesn't stop there. He digs into the roadblocks, the things that trip us up.
He calls them growth gaps. We all face these, by the way.
8 of them, right?
Yeah. Like the assumption gap thinking growth just happens.
Oh, I'm guilty of this.
It's so common we think, oh, I'll just naturally evolve, but it takes effort, right?
Consistent effort. What are some of the other gaps?
Okay, well, there's the knowledge gap, not knowing how to be to grow. It's like you want to, but you're not sure what steps to take.
I've definitely been there. It can be so overwhelming not knowing where to start.
Right. Then there's the timing gap, waiting for the perfect time.
Oh, I'll start next week when things calm down.
The classic. We all do it, right?
Absolutely. But Maxwell's like, nope, start now.
Doesn't have to be huge leaps. Baby steps count.
So I've got assumption, knowledge, timing. What else trips us up?
Fear. The fear gap. Being terrified of messing up.
Ugh, this one is huge, EE. I think it holds so many people back.
It's paralyzing, right? But Maxwell says we got to flip the script on that.
Instead of avoiding failure, we should.
See, mistakes as learning moments. They're part of the process.
It's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
Exactly. He talks about embracing the law of awareness, honestly looking at ourselves and figuring out which of these gaps is holding us back.
That's a great first step. Now, we've got those 4 gaps: assumption, knowledge, timing, fear. There are 4 more, right? How do those show up in our everyday lives?
Well, there's the inspiration gap. We wait for that motivation lightning bolt to strike.
Instead of just doing the thing.
But often, action is what sparks motivation.
Ah, so it's a cycle.
Exactly. Let's say you want to write a book. Instead of waiting to feel inspired, what if you commit to writing 1 page every day?
Small, consistent actions instead of waiting for that big burst of inspiration.
You got it. Makes it less overwhelming, too.
So true. Okay, what about the other gaps?
There's the comparison gap. We're always sizing ourselves up against others. It's a recipe for feeling discouraged.
Social media doesn't help with that, does it?
Definitely not. It's essential to focus on your own path, celebrate your wins, and not get sidetracked by what everyone else is doing.
Everyone's on a different timeline.
Exactly. So we've got 6 down, 2 to go. We've got the expectation gap, which is all about wanting results now.
Instant gratification. That's the world we live in.
Exactly. But real growth, it takes time.
Like a marathon, not a sprint.
Maxwell reminds us that change often happens gradually. You might not even see it at first, but it's happening.
Small, consistent efforts over time.
You got it. And last but not least, there's the perfectionism gap.
Oh boy, I know a few people who struggle with this one. Striving for flawlessness.
It sounds good on paper, but it leads to procrastination.
You get so scared of messing up that you end up doing nothing at all.
Exactly. Remember, it's okay to make mistakes, to try things out and adjust as you go. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress.
So 8 growth gaps identified. But what do we do about them? What are some practical steps to overcome these obstacles and actually start growing?
Maxwell dives into specifics for each gap, but a big takeaway is the power of action. It's moving from thinking about it to doing it.
Shifting from passive to active.
You got it.
Okay, so intention, action, and awareness are key. What comes next?
Well, that's where the law of consistency comes in. Motivation gets us started, but it's discipline that keeps us going.
Discipline. The not so sexy but essential ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
How do we build that discipline muscle, though?
Maxwell has some great strategies for different personality types. He uses the classic ones: phlegmatic, choleric, sanguine, and melancholic.
Wait, hold on. How do personality types tie into discipline? I'm intrigued.
Well, different personalities need different approaches, right? The easygoing phlegmatic, they need to find the value in what they're doing. Like, why does this matter to me?
It has to resonate with their core values.
Right. The take-charge choleric, they thrive on setting goals and making decisions. They need to focus on the power of their choices.
So it's about owning their actions and their impact.
Exactly. Now, the sanguine, the life of the party, they need to make it fun.
Games, rewards, making it enjoyable.
Spot on. And the detail-oriented melancholic, they love mastering the nitty-gritty.
So they find joy in the process itself.
Exactly. It's about understanding what makes each personality tick and using that to fuel their discipline.
This is so helpful. So if our listeners are thinking, okay, I'm motivated, where do I start? What would Maxwell say?
He'd say, focus on today. Don't get overwhelmed by the big picture. Take one tiny step in an area you want to grow today.
It's about those small, consistent actions, building momentum.
Exactly. And those small wins, they matter.
Oh, yeah. They build confidence and keep you going.
Absolutely. We often forget to celebrate those small victories.
So important. We're so focused on the end goal, we miss the wins along the way.
Celebrating them, no matter how small, it keeps you motivated.
It's like giving yourself a pat on the back. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm making progress.
Totally. And it doesn't have to be anything big. Take a moment to appreciate your efforts. Treat yourself to something you enjoy. Share your wins with a friend.
Those little celebrations are fuel for the journey.
They keep you going when things get tough. And speaking of tough, what happens when we hit a roadblock?
When we feel stuck, like we're not moving fast enough. That's a good question.
Well, that's where Maxwell brings in the law of the rubber band.
Okay, I'm all ears. Rubber band. How does that relate to personal growth?
So think about it. A rubber band's only useful when it's stretched.
If it's loose, it has no power.
Right. Same with us. If we get complacent, we lose that drive that pushes us forward. That stretch is the space between where we are now and where we want to be.
So it's about that healthy tension, wanting to grow and become better, but not snapping under pressure.
Exactly. It's a balance for sure. Maxwell suggests setting what he calls intermediate range goals.
Intermediate range goals.
Yeah.
Okay, what's that mean?
They're challenges that are tough enough to make you stretch, but not so overwhelming that you give up.
Makes sense. If it's too easy, you're not motivated. But if it's impossible, you just get discouraged.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot on the rubber band, enough tension for growth, but not enough to break it.
I like that analogy. So it's a constant push and pull, always striving, but not burning out.
Right. But here's the thing. Growth isn't a straight line.
Oh, I know that's true. There are always going to be bumps in the road.
Exactly. You're going to hit obstacles. There will be times you doubt yourself.
Those moments when you're like, can I really do this?
Exactly. But it's how we handle those challenges that defines us.
It builds resilience.
100%. Those setbacks, they're inevitable, but they're not failures.
They're opportunities.
Exactly. They're chances to learn, to adapt, to come back stronger.
I love that perspective shift. Setbacks aren't the end. They're just part of the journey.
Right. And Maxwell talks about reframing how we see them.
Instead of, ugh, I messed up, it's more like, okay, what did this teach me?
You got it. Instead of defeat, it's how can I use this to get better?
So it's all about asking ourselves the right questions. Intention, action, awareness, consistency, those rubber band moments. That's a lot.
It is. But there's another big piece we haven't talked about yet, your environment.
Oh, yeah. our surroundings, the people we're around, that has to play a role, right?
Huge role. It's the law of environment. We're all shaped by our environment to some degree.
The people we spend time with, the places we go, the information we consume, it all influences us, doesn't it?
It totally does. Even Maxwell talks about how he had to change his environment even when he was outwardly successful.
That's interesting. So even when things seem good on the surface, the environment might be holding you back.
It can happen. It's easy to get comfortable, even if it's not the best place for growth.
So how do we know if our environment is helping or hurting our progress?
That's a good question. It's not always obvious.
Maxwell has a kind of checklist for that. First, are there people ahead of you? People who inspire you, who you can learn from? Mentors, role models, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And people who challenge you, who push you to think differently. Remember that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the company you keep. What else should we be looking for in our environment? What are some other signs?
The atmosphere. Is it positive, encouraging, forward-focused? Or is it negative, stagnant, kind of draining?
Yeah, you can feel that energy.
You totally can. Maxwell says it's crucial to be in environments that support a growth mindset where learning and improvement are valued. Think about the places you spend the most time. Work, home, with friends. Do those environments make you feel energized?
Do they make you feel like you can grow and thrive? If not, maybe it's time for a change.
It might be, and that can be scary, stepping outside your comfort zone.
It can be. But what if our environment isn't ideal and we can't just change jobs or move or whatever? Can we still make it work?
That's where the law of design comes in.
Okay, tell me about that one.
It's the idea that we can intentionally design our environment to support growth.
So it's not about just accepting things as they are.
Nope. You can seek out mentors, connect with people who inspire you, join groups or communities that align with your interests.
So you can actively curate your environment to make it more growth-oriented.
Exactly. And it might mean making tough choices like distancing yourself from negative influences or trying new things even if they scare you a little.
Stepping outside of that comfort zone again. Sometimes, though, creating a better environment means letting go of things that are familiar. We're attached to them, even if they're not good for us.
That's so true. That brings us to the law of trade-offs. To grow, you often have to make sacrifices.
Let go of things to make space for new things. It's like that Jim Rohn quote, for things to change, you have to change.
Love that quote. We cling to things that no longer serve us jobs, relationships, even ways of thinking.
Outdated beliefs that are holding us back.
Exactly. Maxwell tells this story about an executive at Pillsbury, super successful guy.
I'm listening.
This guy, he dreamed of becoming company president, but he was comfortable in his current role. Knew he needed a change, though.
Had to shake things up.
Big time. He ended up taking a job in a new city, new industry, totally starting over.
Wow, that's a big leap.
It was. He had to give up security and familiarity to chase that bigger goal.
And it paid off.
It did. So I guess the question is, what are we holding on to?
That's a good question for our listeners to ponder. How do we even figure out what's holding us back?
It can be tough. Think about the areas where you feel stuck. Ask yourself, what am I clinging to that's hindering my growth? Is it fear? A limiting belief? A relationship that's draining?
It takes some serious self-reflection to answer those honestly.
It does, but it's so important. Once you identify what's holding you back, then you can start to think about what you might gain by letting go. It's about weighing the costs and the potential rewards.
Sometimes what feels like a loss can actually open up amazing opportunities.
It's true, but how do we even know what to let go of? That's where curiosity comes in.
The law of curiosity. I love this one. It's all about the power of asking why. Approaching life with a sense of wonder and that eagerness to learn new things.
And to challenge our assumptions.
Which can be hard. We think we know things, but do we really?
Right. Maxwell actually shares a story about doing terribly on a creativity test early in his career.
No way. Even he struggled with this. That's humbling.
It is. It shows that even experts need to work on staying curious.
So how do we do that? How do we tap into that childlike sense of wonder?
It starts with adopting a beginner's mindset.
Beginner's mindset. Okay. Like we're seeing things for the first time.
Exactly. And asking questions, lots of them. Instead of assuming we know everything, we need to be open to new information, different perspectives.
And maybe even admitting we're wrong sometimes.
That's a big one. It can be tough, but it's so freeing. It lets you break free from rigid thinking and constantly learn and grow. But curiosity isn't just about collecting information, right? It's about using it.
Experimenting, putting what we learn into practice.
Exactly. Now, speaking of learning from others, let's talk about mentorship. Maxwell calls this the law of modeling.
Having people ahead of us to guide the way, it's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. Why not learn from their experiences?
Exactly. Why reinvent the wheel? There's so much wisdom out there just waiting to be tapped into.
It's like that story Maxwell tells about the manufacturing expert. He gets called in to fix a broken machine, takes one look, gives it a tap with a hammer, and charges the company $1,000.
Classic. For knowing where to tap.
Exactly. That's the power of experience and wisdom. So how do we find those wise tappers in our own lives? What should we be looking for in a mentor?
Well, a good mentor has experience and knowledge in the area you want to grow, of course. But it's more than that. A mentor is also a friend, someone who supports you and genuinely wants to see you succeed.
It's a relationship, not just a transaction.
Exactly. And finding a mentor doesn't have to mean formal programs or anything like that. Sometimes the best mentors are people you already know. A colleague, a friend, even a family member.
Someone who inspires you. So it's accessible to everyone, really. But once you do find a mentor, what's the best way to make the most of that relationship?
Be proactive. Come prepared with good questions. Be open to their feedback. And most importantly, take action on what they tell you. It's a two-way street, that mentorship relationship.
So you're not just passively receiving information, you're actively participating in the process.
Exactly. The mentor provides guidance, but the responsibility for growth, it's on you.
Okay, so we've talked about intention, action, awareness, consistency, environment, trade-offs, curiosity, and mentorship. Whew. But there's still more, right? How do we actually expand our capacity for growth?
That's the big question, isn't it? How do we become more open to new ideas, more adaptable to change, more capable of achieving our goals?
How do we level up, basically?
That's a great way to put it, and that's exactly where Maxwell takes us next with the law of expansion. This one's all about realizing that we're often using just a tiny fraction of our potential.
Wait, so we have all this untapped potential just waiting to be unleashed?
We do. He uses this analogy of a huge field with just a small part being farmed.
We're like fertile ground waiting to be cultivated.
Exactly. But how do we tap into that vastness? How do we break free from those limitations, those I can't thoughts? It starts with a mindset shift from can I to how can I?
Ooh, I like that. It's about challenging those self-limiting beliefs.
Exactly. Moving from a fixed mindset where you think your abilities are set in stone to a growth mindset.
Where you see challenges as opportunities to learn and improve.
Exactly. And it's not about being perfect. It's about constantly striving to be a little bit better each day.
It reminds me of that quote by Carol Dweck. The passion for stretching yourself and sticking to it, even when it's not going well, is the hallmark of the growth mindset.
Love that quote. It captures the essence of the law of expansion. It's about pushing past those comfort zones, embracing the discomfort that comes with growth.
Because that's where the real transformation happens, right?
It is. When we're willing to stretch ourselves beyond what we thought was possible.
So it's not just about thinking bigger. It's about being willing to do the hard work, to embrace the challenges and keep going even when things get tough. But sometimes I think focusing on our own growth can feel a little selfish, like it's all about me, me, me. How do we balance personal growth with a sense of purpose, with contributing to something bigger than ourselves?
That's such a great point. And that's where the final and perhaps most important law comes in, the law of contribution.
Okay, tell me about this one.
This law shifts the focus from self-development to self-fulfillment. It's the realization that true happiness, true meaning, comes from using our growth to make a positive impact on the world around us.
So it's not just about improving ourselves, it's about using that growth to make a difference.
Exactly. Remember that story Maxwell tells about his dad?
The one where he insisted on being the first resident in that new assisted living facility.
That's the one. And when asked why, he said, I need to be first, son. I need to help others feel more comfortable.
That's such a powerful example of living a life of service. It shows that you don't have to wait to achieve something before you start giving back.
Exactly. Every act of kindness, every time we mentor someone, every time we volunteer our time, it all makes a difference.
It's about shifting our mindset from what can I get to what can I give.
Perfectly said. And you know, often the more we give, the more we receive. Not always material things, but that sense of purpose, that feeling of connection and fulfillment.
It's like Winston Churchill said, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give.
So true. And it creates a beautiful cycle, doesn't it?
It does. As we grow, we inspire others to grow, and they inspire others, and so on.
A ripple effect.
Exactly. It all starts with that commitment to personal growth, to intentionally developing the knowledge, skills, and character traits that allow us to make a positive impact.
So if someone's listening and feeling inspired by this law of contribution, where do they begin? What are some practical steps to align their growth with a sense of purpose? Start by identifying your strengths, your passions. What are you naturally good at? What lights you up? What issues do you care about deeply?
What makes you feel alive?
Yes. Once you have a sense of that, start looking for ways to use those strengths and passions to serve others.
And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture or a huge life change,
It's
right?
not at all. Start small. Help a colleague, mentor someone who's starting out, volunteer at a local charity, or just be more present in your relationships.
Every little bit counts.
Yeah.
It's so empowering to know that we all have the capacity to make a difference.
We do. And remember, the greatest reward of personal growth, it's being able to help others reach their full potential.
Wow, we've covered so much ground today. But I think the biggest takeaway is this. Growth isn't passive. It takes effort. It takes intention, awareness, the right environment, a willingness to let go, curiosity, and that desire to make a difference in the world.
And those laws, they're all interconnected. Work on one and the others start falling into place. So don't feel overwhelmed. Pick one area that resonates with you and start taking small, consistent action.
That's the key: small steps, consistently. And remember, don't settle for average. Push those comfort zones, embrace the journey of growth, and never underestimate the power you have to make a positive impact on the world. Until next time, keep diving deep.